So as you can see here on the DXY, we have bullish order flow and we have room to trade towards this liquidity, supply and 50% levels. So that's why I'm looking for upside on the DXY. My name is Oscar Madsen and I'm a funded trader as well as a personal trading coach. And with this weekly outlook, I go over all Forex pairs and take a look at what we can trade next week. So let's begin on the DXY here on the weekly time frame. And as we can see here, we are weekly bullish. We took liquidity and we're inside this weekly demand now. So for me, we now could trade up higher all the way until this little supply zone. So what I'm expecting for next week is a little move up higher to trade in towards this new supply. And from here, we should trade down lower with the weekly order flow, or we could possibly just continue up higher with the lower time frame order flow to take liquidity above this high, because in this move down there's no liquidity, so we should or could take that out and then start to move up higher. Let's take a look at the daily time frame. We can also see that we're daily structure wise bearish and that this is going to be our premium versus discount. And then you can see that we perfectly tapped this refined demand zone with this liquidity as well. So what can we expect from here? Well, we could expect a reaction up higher in towards what? First of all, in towards this supply zone. But like I said, those 50% levels is something I would like to trade towards. So when am I going to take the A plus short long setups? When we break the daily fractal, then I'm going to take longs in towards that 50%, because I'm expecting a pullback up higher at the moment, because daily is bearish, but we should make a pullback before trading down lower. So at the moment, I'm looking for upside here on the DXY. At the moment also, this little supply zone is in control, but as long as the 4-hour order flow stays bullish, which I'm looking out for, then I'm keeping an eye on those longs until we break the daily fractal, and then I'm more certain of my trade long setups. So if I go over to the 4-hour, then this is my order flow. This is going to be my demand, and then we had another demand being created, and then after that we had another demand in control. So as you can see, we are respecting demand zones and just pushing up higher. So what I could expect is to just continue the order flow and push up higher, at least in towards 50% levels of the 4-hour trend, right? So up, down, and now I want to trade towards those 50% levels in towards that little supply zone. So that's also what I'm looking for. So next week I'm looking for upside on the DXY, and then once we tap these 50% levels on the 4-hour time frame, you could possibly look for small shorts. I wouldn't target the lows because of the daily that could make a pullback, but we could see a small reaction and then trade up higher, for example. But at least this move in towards the upside is what I'm looking at. So going over to EURUSD, I'm then of course looking at downside. So going over to the weekly time frame, let's see what I'm looking at. So first of all, we have a new demand zone that has been created, as you can see over here. So we could in the near future either expect to move up higher, then down lower towards this demand, or from this demand trade towards this supply zone. So that's what I'm looking for. We also have a lot of liquidity still open, and I can see that we now took liquidity above this high, so we could expect a little reaction and then moving up higher. So that's also what I'm looking for. Going over to the daily time frame, let's see if we have any little supply, and we do. So this is a buy before the sell, as you can see, with this being our high, and we should be trading in here. Yes, so this is the daily supply where we have been reacting from. Same thing as the DXY, we should retrace towards that 50% level, or we could continue the order flow up higher, but we could at least expect a move down lower. So at the moment we're daily bullish. We could make a pullback towards 50% to then trade up higher in towards that weekly supply, but we could also just get a move down lower in towards this demand zone, which is your order flow, and from here you could then trade up higher and then make a pullback towards the 50% levels. That's also what I'm eyeing. So for now I'm looking to short from this daily supply short towards this daily demand. From here I will look at longs, and it's more clear on the 4 hour, because on the 4 hour you can see that this is going to be my structure right over here, and that we can get a pullback towards the 50% levels, and then we can move up higher. But at the moment I'm looking for those shorts towards that 50% level, which is going to be also your daily demand. This is your daily demand, and this is going to be your 4 hour demand refined. So this is a nice point of interest, as well as some liquidity to grab underneath these lows, as you can see. So I'm definitely looking at those shorts. Am I already looking for those short setups? Not yet. Reason for this is because the order flow is still bullish. This demand is in control. I would like to see that break, then we create supply, and then I would like to take those short setups. As of now, we could still see a little swipe like this, swiping the high, and then we could start to move down lower. So that's why I'm being patient, never rush anything. But this is the move for next week that I want to be trading. From here I could look for longs in line with that 4 hour trend and the daily order flow. So that's what I'm looking for next week. Going over to GBPUSD on the weekly time frame, the order flow is still bullish. We are inside this demand, so we could still trade up higher. We did take a little bit of liquidity, but as you can see, some more liquidity is open as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if we just continue with the weekly order flow to take all of the liquidity above the highs. Going over to the daily time frame, let's see what we could expect. So again, we are also daily bullish here on the daily time frame. We tapped the discount prices, we tapped the discount prices, as you can see, and from here we could trade up higher in towards that weekly liquidity. So definitely looking for upside. Also the daily order flow is also bullish, and we took liquidity over here, so definitely looks nice for that upside. I can see that we have this demand also still open, so that's definitely something to keep in mind. This supply is also still in control, right? So this supply could push price down lower. Then from this demand we could long. So that's also what I'm looking for. The reason for this is we grab liquidity underneath this low, tap discount prices, and we moved up higher. Now, as you might know, because you have watched any of my videos maybe, then you know that this is a bad low. This is a bad low because these are early buyers, right? And we can swipe those. So once we swipe those early buyers, then we could see a tapping towards the daily 4 hour demand, and then we could start to trade up higher again in towards that 4 hour swing high. So that's also what I'm looking for. At the moment you could take short setups to that bad low, but is it a plus? No, because you're bullish and we tap discount prices and we took liquidity, so that's not the best way to take a trade. Be patient and wait for that long setup from this demand zone. Going over to NZDUSD, going over to the weekly time frame, we tap this weekly supply, a big point of interest for me, and we could possibly now get a reaction from there, taking liquidity underneath this low. Keep in mind though that the order flow is bullish, but still definitely expecting a reaction as we already had, but I expect a deeper reaction because this supply zone also grabbed liquidity, so it could be a very strong supply zone. Going over to the daily time frame, from this weekly supply you also had daily liquidity, which we took out to perfection, and now we could see a move down lower. And what I can also see is that we have an open daily demand still open, so we are daily bullish. And if I take my premium versus discount from the swing low in towards the swing high, which we have over here, then we could see a retracement back, taking all of the liquidity, tapping this refined demand and trading down lower. So that's definitely possible, but it could also be that we just continue the order flow and then trade down lower. So what am I going to do with these two setups? I can see that this aligns with both of them, so I'm going to take the short in the beginning, right? I'm not going to take a short when I'm over here or a long setup, because then there is a different option that could also play out. But the one that I'm more sure of is the one in the beginning with this move down lower. From here we could trade up higher or trade down lower. But that's something we need to see on the lower time frame, and maybe just wait and do not trade that. So going over it on the 4-hour time frame, we are 4-hour bullish, but we could make that retracement towards that 50% level, where it's also that 4-hour liquidity as well as the 4-hour demand zone. So what can I then see? That the order flow switched bearish. So now we could definitely trade down lower towards this liquidity. So at the moment, I'm just looking at shorts from this supply zone, and that's just what I'm looking for next week. Now, once we take this liquidity, I'm not going to look for any shorts anymore. I will look for longs, even though we had that weekly supply. The reason is we're structured bullish. We took liquidity discount, daily demand, order flow is bullish on the weekly as well, so we could trade up higher. So that's what I'm looking for NZDUSD. Those long setups I'm going to be careful of, because we could trade down lower towards the daily discount prices, but that's just something small to keep in mind. But the most A+ is to look for the shorts. Going over to AUDUSD, on the weekly time frame we took weekly liquidity, and now we could see a retracement back in towards this fresh demand zone being in control. So with this demand zone in control, then we could see a pullback just inside that demand. It's more visible on the daily time frame, I think. Let's see. So we can see that over here we have a demand zone where we could retrace into. At the moment the order flow is still bullish with this demand being in control. So for those shorts I prefer NZDUSD, but if you look at the PVD over here, let's see, then we should also sooner or later, once the order flow switches bearish, should swipe all of the lows and tap those discount prices before moving up higher. But at the moment the order flow is still bullish, as you can see, with this demand being in control. So am I going to short yet? Not yet, right? I'm waiting for that order flow to switch, which is also your daily fractal, and then from there I'm looking to trade down lower towards that liquidity at 50% levels. So possibly not for next week, or maybe later on in that week. For now, I think I prefer NZDUSD. So when I go over to the 4-hour time frame, we are 4-hour structure wise bullish, but the order flow has been switching bearish, and we could now see a retracement towards the 50% as well as the liquidity. So it is possible to take short setups towards that 50% and liquidity, but I prefer NZDUSD because also the daily order flow is in line. Now with this one, the daily order flow is bullish, and this amount is being in control on the daily time frame, and it could push price back up higher. So that's why I prefer NZDUSD, and I'm not going to short AUDUSD unless we break this daily fractal. Then we could trade all the way down lower to take all of the lows. So that's what I'm looking for next week as well. I'm going over to EURUAD. I was looking at longs, but now I find them a bit tricky. But let's see. We're weekly bullish. From this move up, we got a move down, a pullback in towards the 50% levels, in towards this demand, and now it's pushing up higher, so we could just continue to trade up higher as well. On the daily time frame, what do I see? The daily order flow is bullish with this daily demand being in control, and we now broke the daily fractal as well. So now this is your demand also in control, where we now could trade up higher from, in towards this liquidity at least. From here, I would be careful to take any more long setups, because we could see a small reaction, taking liquidity, tapping refined demand to then trade up higher. So at the moment, I'm looking for those longs until this liquidity. Then I'm waiting for a liquidity grab somewhere, then the order flow to switch bullish again, and then take long setups again. So that's what I'm waiting for. On the 4-hour time frame, we're also bullish order flow, and then you can see that I'm going to point out, or that I point out this liquidity, which is also internal liquidity that we could grab before a reaction down lower. But this is definitely the main liquidity where I want to take a look at, because it's daily liquidity, and we could already see a reaction from there. So at the moment, what is going on? This is your order flow being in control. So if we see a retracement in the beginning of the week, I would like to go long already towards that liquidity. If for instance I do not get any trade or a long setup and we grab that liquidity already, then I'm not going to short, although it could possibly happen because we took daily liquidity and we could take out all of the lows, trade in towards refined demand. Am I going to do it? No, because it's counter the daily order flow. So what am I waiting on? Well, I'm waiting on then to from here grab liquidity, need the lows, this, then the order flow to switch bullish, and then I'm going to take those long setups again. But for now, I hope to see a retracement in towards this demand. Then I go over to the lower time frame and look for my long setup in the beginning of the week on Monday. Going over to GBPAUD on the weekly time frame, what do I see? That we have a weekly demand still open, and I definitely want to trade towards that before moving up higher or taking any long setups. On the daily time frame, it's also visible that we took a bit of liquidity above this high, got a reaction, and now we took some more liquidity above this high as well. Let's see. Did we take liquidity above this high also? We also took liquidity above this high as well. So this could cause us to dump down lower, because now we took liquidity above this high and we took a liquidity one more time, but now the order flow on the daily time frame still remains bullish, so we could expect to just trade up higher, and those short setups are not valid. Although in the near future I definitely want to short all these lows out, and then from there those are A+ long setups. Now at the moment, what am I going to do? I'm going to wait, or actually the order flow is bearish, and I see why, because we trade down lower, we trade up higher, down lower, up higher, down lower. So what have we created? A supply zone which is now in control. So the order flow is already bearish, and I could start to look for those shorts. It is counter the daily structure as well as the daily discount prices, because we tapped the discount prices. Now we could trade up higher. So it's not the best one to take short setups, but I think it's definitely possible with all the lows. So I'm going to wait on the 4 hour for some more confirmation. If I see anything that looks interesting, I'm definitely going to take a look at that. So what am I going to point out? That we still have some more liquidity left to grab above the highs, which we could grab before moving down lower. And then also, of course, this supply being in control. And then if I see a liquidity grab, for example, and then again 4 hour order flow to change bearish, I could look for the shorts towards all of these lows. But I'm going to be careful, because we have liquidity and it's counter the 4 hour and daily trend as well as discount prices. Definitely something to keep in mind. Or actually this was GBPAUD. I think I said GBPNZD, but it doesn't matter, because now we go to EURNZD on the weekly time frame. On the weekly time frame, we still have this weekly demand zone open, but we also have this demand zone being in control, and this could push price back up higher. So let's see what we do on the lower time frame. On the lower time or on the daily time frame, we are bullish. We still have the discount prices open, because as you can see, we moved up higher and we just barely didn't hit those discount prices. So now that we are inside the supply, I could still expect a pullback to take out the liquidity, tap the discount prices, tap the demand, and from here are A+ longs, but that's going to be a long time from now. So at the moment, I'm looking for those shorts. So what can we see inside this supply zone? Well, that we had first sellers. We are now going to swipe these, and then we could see the real move in towards the downside. Now keep in mind that once we swipe the possible early sellers, we also create a demand zone on the daily, which could push price back up higher. So it's tricky to take short setups. Definitely possible, but not actually in line, and a bit impatient, I would say. But when I go over to the 4 hour, it's still possible, because first of all, we have some internal liquidity inside that daily supply. And what do I see? A lot of lows open, which is all weak. So once we grab that liquidity, what could we look for those short setups? It's the same thing as EUR80. Is it a plus to take the short setup? No. Is it a possibility? Yes. So that's here for EURNZD. You could take the short. It's not a plus because the daily order flow will be bullish, but I'm going to possibly look for another pair that is a plus instead of not taking an a plus setup. Going over to GBPNZD now on the weekly time frame first. Yeah, we are now inside the supply zone. The order flow is also bearish, so I'm looking to short, of course, in line with the order flow. The daily structure is bullish though, with also the order flow being bullish. So yeah, definitely seeing upside on the daily time frame. And we also have some liquidity above these highs as well that we could take out in the near future. On the 4-hour time frame, we are bearish, as you can see, and then we got a move up higher, tapping discount prices from this move down lower, and now we could see that reaction down lower. But there's one thing why we're not seeing downside, and that's the order flow that is remaining bullish, with this demand being in control. So at the moment, I'm actually possibly looking for longs towards this liquidity. So what do we know? We are inside weekly supply, so that could push us down lower. We are daily structure bullish. We tap discount prices. The order flow is bullish with daily demand. We could trade up higher on the daily 100%. On the 4-hour, we are bearish, right? We tapped premium prices and now we got a reaction down lower. But what happened? We failed to break the low, so now we could take out the highs. So I'm still going to look for longs, even though we are inside weekly supply and the 4-hour structure is bearish and we tap premium prices. Why is that? Because I still see upside if the order flow on the daily is bullish with the structure, and if the 4-hour order flow also turns bullish or this fractal turns bullish, then I'm going to look for longs towards this liquidity, and from that liquidity point I'm then going to look for shorts. Why? Because we then have the weekly supply with liquidity for now, and then we could see the reaction, right? So before that, I don't see price trading down lower, but if we now start to break those highs, then I could look for those longs. You can see we are respecting the highs at the moment, but also the lows over here. So when we break the high, I'm looking for that long towards the liquidity. From there, you could take shorts if the daily order flow switches bearish. So that's also my view here on GBPNZD. Going over to AUDNZD, we predicted this beautifully. As you guys know, the weekly and daily time frame is not really beautiful, but let's discuss it. You can see we're consolidating, but as you can see, we tapped this weekly demand, we took weekly liquidity, and now we could see that move up higher. And what is going to be my target in the long term, these liquidity highs. So that's what I'm waiting on, because the order flow is bullish. That's also what I'm looking for on the daily time frame. Let's see. Yeah, we took daily liquidity over here, then we traded up higher, creating this demand zone. We grabbed internal liquidity, and now it's looking like we have bullish order flow in the lower time frame, and we could trade up higher. On the 4-hour time frame, we are 4-hour bullish. We tapped discount prices. We have bullish order flow. We took liquidity. We tapped demand, so we could trade up higher. And this is your demand in control, but now I can also see that this is going to be my demand in control, and we could trade up higher from this demand. Now personally, I'm not going to do that. Why not? Because we have some liquidity over here and a refined demand zone. So even though the order flow is bullish, we took liquidity above the high. I want to take liquidity at the low. Boom, tap this demand, then switch the order flow bullish again, creating demand. Order flow is bullish, and that is my long setup. Entry here, stop loss here, trading up higher. That's going to be my 4-hour setup here on AUDNZD. Not going to rush things, wait for liquidity, wait for this demand, wait for my plan to play out to then take those long setups. And as you can see, there's also a lot of liquidity above all of these highs, which we can take out in the near future. Going over to USD Swiss on the weekly time frame again, you can see that this is now the supply and control over here. But as you might know, we are inside this demand zone, right? So we could see a possible move up higher, but from this supply we could then trade down lower, right? So either this or this. So again, what move do I know? This move up. So then I go over to the lower time frame, wait for the order flow to switch bullish, and then I could take those long setups towards this weekly supply zone. On a weekly time frame, in the near future, we should switch the order flow to trade up higher towards the premium prices, but that's not for now. On the daily, we are daily bearish, and if we take a look to the discount prices, 1 second, like this, then we can see that we still need to retrace up higher. Now we have this supply zone being in control at the moment, so I want to still look for longs in towards the supply once the 4-hour order flow switches bullish, or if the daily gives something like this, but the daily fractal could be bullish as well to take those long setups. But if the order flow on the 4-hour remains bullish, we could start to look for longs towards this supply, and then from this supply we either trade down lower with the order flow and then trade towards the premium prices, or we already trade up higher towards the premium prices and then take shorts. Going over to the 4-hour time frame, let's see. So again, this is going to be my structure, boom, and this is one move down. Why? Because this was internal, so then this is also internal for me. So this is then going to be my PVD, and it's going to be the same as a daily time frame. We can also see that we have this supply still open with liquidity above all of these highs. So definitely something to keep in mind in the near future. But once the order flow turns bullish, which is going to be this high over here. Why? Because you get to buy, the sell, and then once the order flow switches bullish, then we create demand, and then we could look for those longs towards that daily supply zone. So that's my game plan here on USD Swiss. Going over to Euro Swiss on the weekly time frame, not really clear. As you can see, we're consolidating, but we took liquidity, we could trade up higher. On a daily time frame, also consolidating inside this daily demand. What do we know? First of all, we took liquidity underneath the low, so we could take liquidity above the high. But when we consolidate, a demand zone is getting weaker and weaker, and we could start to break that demand. So we need to see on the 4-hour what will happen. I'm already going to say I'm not going to trade this pair. As you can see, it has just been consolidating, so nothing to see here. Why is that? Because of all of the uncertainties going on, and then the euro and the Swiss franc are acting as a safe haven as well. So over here, you can see though that we grab liquidity underneath this low. So now we could start to push up higher. Of course, I'm not going to predict this because this is just consolidative and, in my opinion, not tradable. But yeah, the order flow, or we have a point of interest where we want to trade towards this liquidity, and now you can see that the order flow is just bullish after breaking this high. So longs are definitely possible, not the best because you're consolidating, and inside consolidation you always see setups which are just fake and not valid. So I would recommend staying out of this pair. Going over to GBP Swiss here, you can see the order flow is bearish, even though we took liquidity underneath the low where we should take liquidity above the high. The order flow here, this supply zone remains strong, and we are pushing down lower. Going over to the daily time frame, we're daily bearish. We tapped premium prices, and now the daily order flow is or has been turned bearish with now this supply in control. So as we know, we now took a little bit of liquidity underneath the low, could give us a bit of a reaction up higher in towards the supply, and from here then trade down lower towards a swing low, right? So that's also what I'm waiting for. But if the 4 hours shows some confirmation, we could take longs towards the supply, from here short again towards a swing low. On the 4-hour time frame, this is going to be the same as Euro Swiss. This is my structure, and then this is one move down lower because this is internal. So if I then draw my PVD from the swing high into the swing low, then I can see that my PVD is right at all of these liquidities, and that we could trade up higher to take that all out. So again, same thing as Euro Swiss, we took liquidity, but if the order flow switches bullish here, which is going to be this high because you have to buy this sell, then the order flow, demand zone being created, and then we could start to push up higher towards that 50% and that open supply with those liquidity underneath. So that's what I'm looking for GBP Swiss. Definitely keep in mind that this is still your daily supply zone and the daily order flow, which could push price down lower with the premium prices in towards that daily swing low. Going over to AUD Swiss on the weekly time frame, you can then see that this was your weekly supply, and then now this was the weekly supply in control, which is now pushing price down lower, as you can see. So going over to the daily time frame, this is also going to be my daily low as well. So daily low, so I want to trade down lower towards that daily low for now. Now what do I also see? That we have some liquidity to grab as well, and if we remove all of this over here, then we can see that this supply is being in control and is pushing price down lower. So I'm looking for the shorts towards that liquidity. From here a small reaction and then short again down lower, but overall I'm looking for shorts because I see this liquidity that I want to take out. So how am I going to take short setups? Not randomly, of course. I'm waiting for my premium first discount prices. This is going to be my high and this is going to be my low, and then I wait for the retracement towards the 50% to trade towards this liquidity right over here, and then from there, what do I want to see? Well, the order flow switch down lower with the supply being created, and then trade down lower, of course, to take those shorts towards the swing low that will be here, as well as the liquidity. So that's what I'm waiting for. Am I going to take longs? No, because everything says shorts. So just the same as this trade, we're bearish, we then take liquidity, the order flow turns bearish. I made a trade breakdown about this one, I think, but then here was a short down lower. So just the same is what I'm expecting. A move up higher, premium prices. Once the order flow switches bearish, I'm going to short this pair. Going over to NZD Swiss, going over to the weekly time frame, we have this supply being in control that is pushing price down lower. On the daily time frame as well, this is your daily order flow, which is bearish, and then this is going to be my daily swing where we could trade towards. So this supply is going to be in control, or actually it's going to be this, and actually it's not even going to be that, it's going to be the next one, which is going to be this one. So this supply is going to be in control as of now, and it's going to keep pushing price down lower in line with that order flow and the trend. So on the 4 hour, this is going to be my 4 hour trend. As you can see, this is not really nice. We did take liquidity and need all of these lows. Definitely something to mention because these were open lows. Let's see. This is then your little demand zone refined, which we didn't yet tap. So yeah, this one doesn't look the best, but if we take it from the swing high to the swing low, we could see a possible retracement up higher in towards 50% to then trade down lower or trade up higher. So that's also what I'm expecting. We do have a supply zone over here where we could trade towards, and we have all of this liquidity as well still open. So yeah, definitely something to keep in mind here, but I do not like to take long setups. Why not? Because the daily order flow is bearish, and I do not like to take shorts. Why not? Because all of this liquidity and this supply. So I'm not going to trade NZD Swiss because daily and the 4 hour are against each other, and I don't want to trade anything then. Going over to CAD Swiss on the weekly time frame, you can see that we now swiped the lows right over here, and that we could now start to trade up higher in towards the premium prices. Now here's also liquidity to grab as well that there is a little refined daily or weekly supply open. So something to look to trade towards, but as of now the order flow is bearish with this supply being in control. So again, what could we expect? To trade up higher, then down lower, or just break through? But what is the move I expect? This, right? So we could take those longs towards that supply. Now why could we trade down lower? Because the order flow is bearish and we could continue that order flow. As of now, I am expecting that pullback. On the daily time frame, this is going to be my daily low, which we have broken. And then again, same thing over here. This is your PVD. And yeah, I'm just looking for that upside 100% of the times. Going to trade that pullback. We swipe the low. Now I want to trade up higher towards the supply, towards the 50% as well. So that's definitely what I'm waiting for. And let's also try down the supply, which is in control, so that we know where we want to trade towards. So I want to take longs towards that supply. On the 4-hour time frame, this is also my 4-hour swing, which we have broken. And then this is going to be my bullish order flow on the 4-hour. So this already looks very clean to take my long setups to trade towards that 50%, which we have shown on the daily time frame, which is going to be the same here on the 4-hour. So that's what I'm looking for here on CAD Swiss, to take longs towards this internal liquidity, which is perfectly in line with that 50% and this 4-hour or daily supply zone. So that's what I'm waiting for those longs, because the order flow is already bullish. So I'm just going to be looking at longs here inside this demand zone to take longs towards that liquidity and 50%. Going over to USDCAD on the weekly time frame, what again do we see? That we are trading inside this demand, but that this supply is pushing price down lower. On the daily time frame, we were bullish, we took liquidity, we tapped demand, and the order flow is also bullish with this demand being in control. So as we see with the structure, the discount prices, the liquidity, the demand, the order flow, everything is checked off, so we should trade up higher. So yeah, I'm looking for longs again here on USDCAD. Looking on the 4-hour, we're also 4-hour bullish. As you can see, we are trading inside discount prices. We now have perfectly tapped this refined 4-hour demand zone. So yeah, this is definitely looking really clean to take longs. But as you can see, the order flow over here is just bearish. So it's pushing price down lower on the daily and the 4-hour, or not on the daily, but yeah, on the 4-hour. So this is your supply in control, but once we break that supply, then we've created demand, then we've switched the order flow, and that's then when I take those longs to take out all of that trendline liquidity and trade towards the swing high over here. So that's definitely my go-to here. So what I'm going to do, go to the fractal break alert right over here, and I'm going to set the fractals on so that I know when the order flow switches, and then we could take long setups towards the 4-hour structure or swing high. That's my go-to also. Going to like that one. Previously I didn't on my pairs, but I forgot. But CAD Swiss and USDCAD looks really clean. EURCAD, looking on a weekly time frame, we now grab that liquidity over here, that weekly liquidity. Now this is going to be your supply where we're in, right over here. So that's definitely something that could push price down lower, but as of now, what can we see? Of course, that the order flow is bullish with this demand being in control. But because we took weekly liquidity, we could see retracement towards that demand, and then from here either trade up higher or trade down lower. So again, what move do we know? This move down lower, and that's also what I'm waiting for once the daily order flow switches bearish, which we kinda did. So the order overall structure is this one. This is all internal for me, so we could trade towards the discount prices in the near future to take out all of the lows and tap in towards this demand. That's also what I'm waiting for. We can see though that the order flow here is bullish with this demand being in control, but as of here we have created a supply zone which could push price down lower towards this demand. So I'm looking for shorts here from the supply towards that daily demand, and that's my go-to for next week as well. On a 4-hour time frame, you can see that we're 4-hour bullish from the swing low towards that swing high. What do I see? Well, that we could perfectly get a reaction down lower in towards what? In towards, this is going to be that gap. I can see it. So yeah, this is going to be your demand zone here on the 4-hour, and this one also, because we never tapped in towards this demand because this is a fake candle. I made a video about it as well, but this is the discount prices where I want to retrace to. So now that the daily order flow and the 4-hour order flow switches bearish, what am I going to do? Going to short. So I see that in this move down there's no liquidity. I want to grab liquidity above the high, and then I want to take short setups in towards these lows and this 50% level. So this one I'm also going to give it a flag because I think this one is also looking really clean with all of the confluences. Going over to GBPCAD on the weekly time frame, we are weekly order flow bullish with this demand being in control. So we could expect to push up higher, and I want to trade towards that liquidity because the order flow has just been bullish forever. On a daily time frame, we didn't break the high over here, so that's definitely something to keep in mind. We were bullish, we tapped discount prices, took liquidity, we have bullish order flow, but this demand is in control, or not in control but open, so definitely would actually not be so surprised if we see a tap in that. So why not? Well, we're bullish, right, with this being your swing high, but we took liquidity above that swing high, right? So we took liquidity. Now we could see a retracement, take liquidity at the lows, still remain bullish. We take liquidity at those lows, tap this demand, connect the original order flow, from here those longs. So that's what I'm waiting for. Am I going to take shorts? No, I'm not, because I'm in daily demand. So what am I waiting for then next week? For those longs once we tap that demand. So that's definitely my go-to for next week. On the 4-hour, we did switch here bullish. So that's also something to keep in mind. Going to remove all of this because it's unnecessary on my chart. And this is the only thing that I am looking at with this liquidity of these 3 lows. This is now also your supply and control, and now we can also see that we missed a beautiful short setup, something like this, to trade down lower. This was a beautiful setup to take a short one, but yeah, we could still take shorts. If we see a retracement in towards the supply, then I could take shorts towards the downside. Why is that? Well, because of the 50% level, right? So we are bullish, but like I said multiple times, we could get a pullback towards the discount prices. So when I see that pullback or that retracement towards the supply, we could still find those short setups if we see confirmation towards those discount prices, and then obviously we could expect to take liquidity in the lows, tap the demand, and from here A+ setups. So that's what I'm also looking for GBPCAD. Definitely something to keep in mind for next week, either shorts from the supply or longs from this demand. Looking at NZDCAD, again, I'm not going to review this one because we have been consolidating, and for next week nothing is really what I'm looking for. Now, what did we have previous week? We grabbed liquidity underneath this consolidation phase. So what could we expect? To grab liquidity above the highs? And that's also what we did. So if you could find your entry, congrats. But as of now, yeah, we're still consolidating, or it's after consolidation. But yeah, let's just review this because I now see that it could still be valid. Let's explain it. So on the weekly time frame, this supply zone is still in control, and this supply zone could still push price down lower. But as we know, when you consolidate or when you're inside the supply for a very long time, it gets weaker. So this supply zone could get weaker and it could break in the near future to trade towards this refined supply with liquidity above the highs. But this also aligns with the liquidity play because we took liquidity above the lows. Now we could take liquidity above the highs. So that's something to keep in mind, that even though the supply is in control, we could still trade up higher. So when I go over to the daily time frame, I then see that this daily demand is being in control, and this could push price up higher. It's also in line with the order flow as well, with this demand. So the order flow is bullish. We took daily liquidity, internal liquidity over here, which could fuel the next move up higher. So that's what I'm looking for. We could also see that consolidation, manipulation, and now the distribution up higher. So that's definitely what I'm looking for. Yeah, we're also 4 hour bullish. We got a retracement in towards the discount prices, as you can see over here, liquidity, demand as well. So now the only thing that we're missing here on the 4 hour is the order flow. So what is going to be my order flow? It's going to be this fractal. So what am I going to do? I'm going to set my alert here on the fractal indicator right over here. And then once this fractal breaks, then I'm going to take longs in line with that order flow, trading up higher in towards that weekly supply zone. AUDCAD on a weekly time frame, we took liquidity underneath the lows, so we could take that internal liquidity over here. Definitely still what I'm looking for. Daily is bearish, and we already had a retracement in towards the premium prices, so we could trade down lower, but liquidity plays are more probability than just discount prices. So I still want to take that liquidity here on the weekly time frame. Then we have this daily supply where I want to trade towards, but what can I see? The daily order flow is bearish. So before I take a long setup, my daily order flow needs to switch bullish, create demand, then I will take longs towards that liquidity. As of now, I'm not going to take longs as long as the order flow remains bearish. So I'm not going to go over to the 4 hour because it will complicate things. I'm not going to take any trade here. I'm not short, not long, unless a long setup once the order flow on the daily turns bullish. Going over to the yen basket, what can I see? That we're bullish. We had bullish order flow, but now we switched that order flow and we now have bearish order flow. So what happened? We grabbed liquidity above this high. We failed to grab or break that high. So now we are grabbing liquidity at the lows, right? So that is definitely something to keep in mind, that we could take out liquidity at all of the lows before moving up higher. Definitely something to take a look at. So yeah, you can see all of the liquidity, the demand zone as well. And then now this supply is still in control. And as you can see, it's already giving a small reaction. But that's going to be my supply in control. So when I go over to the 4 hour, what do I see? Well, I can see that the order flow here is clearly bearish. So first of all, let's take the PVD from the swing high towards the swing low. And we could see a small retracement trading towards at 50% to then trade down lower to take out all of the liquidity. But as you can see here, yeah, this is just bearish, bearish, bearish. And we could just continue to trade down lower to take out all of the liquidity. Definitely something to keep in mind. When I set this indicator, you can also see the yearly level over here with these two equal lows. So this might be a point where we trade before seeing a pullback up higher. Definitely something to keep in mind as well. As we know, those opens are acting as a magnet inside the market. So as of now, this supply is in control. You have the monthly level, which could push price down lower. Definitely something to keep in mind. Are those shorts valid? I would say more than longs are, but it's not in line with that 4 hour discount prices because we could see a retracement and then trade down lower. That's the only thing for now. The order flow on the weekly, daily, and 4 hour is bearish. 4 hour structure is bearish. We took liquidity. We are inside the supply monthly and weekly level, trading towards the yearly level. Could possibly trade down lower. But am I going to do that? No. Because I think it's just not a plus because of those discount prices, which is definitely something to keep in mind when trading. because if you don't keep in mind with that, it's called a continuation trade, because you're expecting that it will continue down lower. And as my backtesting have showed me, my continuation trades are not the best, and I don't have the best win rate with them, so I'm going to stay out of them. On the Euro Yen though, what can I see? Let's start off with the weekly time frame first. So on the weekly time frame, we're inside this freshly supply where I expect a reaction from, because we also took liquidity. On the daily time frame, we took liquidity, and we have this daily supply as well, where we also are trading in. So then I can also see that this daily demand is in control, and that this could still push price back up higher. Now, if the order flow turns bearish, we could see shorts. So that's also what I'm waiting for, to wait for the order flow to turn bearish. Then I'm going to take short setups. Longs are not what I'm looking for, because we're inside weekly supply, we took liquidity, we're structure wise on the weekly and daily bearish. That's just not valid for me. Looking on the 4 hour, we are bullish, but we could see that retracement towards those discount prices, right? So once the daily order flow switches bearish, I'm going to short this one. As of now, I'm waiting this one out because it's showing bullish signs, but overall we should trade down lower. So I'm waiting for that bearish confirmation, and then I will take shorts. Not for next week probably. Going over to GBP Yen, what can we see? We can see a little flag here, and then we could take out all of the liquidity above the highs. I do not trade flags, but you can use it as small confluences to see what price is doing, where liquidity is. So this is going to be my weekly liquidity. This is going to be my supply. And yeah, we could see that upside if the order flow remains bullish, take liquidity and then down lower. That's also what I'm waiting for. So I'm going to also show that here on the chart so that I know it when I look back at the chart. Gotta do it correctly. So as of now, the order flow is also bearish. So first, or actually it's bullish. Reason for this is that we have just continued up higher. This amount is in control. Yes, the supply is also in control, but overall the daily order flow is bullish. This was internal liquidity. Now we could continue up higher to take out that liquidity. So here on GBP Yen, I'm looking for those longs. That could be in line with that yen that could trade down lower as a continuation down lower. Looking at the 4 hour, we also have a 4 hour structure bullish, right? With this demand zone still open, and then also some more internal liquidity as well, right? And you can see we didn't tap that 4 hour demand. So now we also have a refined demand, and I really do not like that this is all still open. So yes, we are inside this demand and the 4 hour order flow is bullish. So yes, we could trade up higher. Am I liking it? No, because when I check off my checklist, yeah, we have a little bit of liquidity, but do we have a demand zone? No, we do not have a demand zone, right? Yeah, we have this one, but we didn't really tap any, and that's why I'm waiting for that. Then the order flow, and then we could trade up higher. You could already start to look for those longs. I just prefer not to look at any other pair, because there still is a risk that if you want to take a long, that we could still see a swipe before longing, and I just want to be patient, wait for the best setup here. Going over to USD Yen on the weekly time frame here, yeah, this supply is in control, and this could push price back down lower. On the daily time frame, we're also daily bearish. We gotta keep in mind that we didn't yet tap the premium prices here. We were close to it and we took liquidity, but this supply is still open at refined supply as well as this premium prices. So we could definitely see one more swipe before moving down lower, making this channel. Again, I do not trade any channels or anything, but that's just something to keep a look at, because that's definitely something to keep in mind. Now, As of now, this supply is still in control as well, and this could push price down lower. As you can see, we have been consolidating, so again, I'm not going to trade this probably, but yeah, this supply is in control, so it could push price down lower. But yeah, this is just ugly. A refined supply with the premium versus cancel open definitely could retrace towards that and then move down lower. So keep that in mind when trading this pair. Going over to the 4-hour time frame, here you can see that we're 4-hour bearish. This is going to be your 4-hour swing low. This is ugly. Yeah, I don't know how I should trade this. We did take liquidity underneath this low, and now the order flow has switched bullish, so we could take a longs towards those prices. That's definitely something that is possible, but you gotta remember that you're inside this daily supply. But overall, we should trade towards this, so that's definitely the possibility. Again, is it A plus? No, because we're in daily supply, so I would look at some other pairs. But if I do not find any entry on other pairs, and this is the only pair showing an entry, I could possibly trade this one, because yeah, it's still possible, but the structure and daily demand, it's just not the best setup. Going over to AUD yen, let's see on the weekly time frame first. Of course, that's what we also always do. If we are looking, the structure is bearish, and this is your PVD, which we also already tapped, so we could trade down lower. Now this supply is still in control, and then we broke the fractal, so now this is your supply in control, could push price still down lower, but we see that we have liquidity above the highs, which is definitely something to keep in mind, because we could take that out, tap this supply, and then trade down lower. On the daily time frame, yeah, this supply is also in control, and again, we could trade down lower. So as of now, once the daily fractal breaks down lower, you could look for the shorts. Again, we're consolidating, so it probably will happen, and it could be a fake out to then trade up higher. But if you want to trade this mechanically, then it's something you can do. As of now, I'm not really a fan of all of these pairs, because a lot of pairs are consolidating, and I'm waiting that out. But we took liquidity, we are inside the supply, we tapped premium prices, we're daily bearish, so it looks nice to trade down lower if we see that confirmation inside the supply. So once we break the fractal, maybe 2 fractals to be sure, then we could take short setups. On the 4-hour time frame, yeah, I'm just going to say that we're bearish, we took liquidity, and then we took liquidity and swiped highs every single time. But once we are going to break those lows and yeah, actually break that daily fractal multiple times, then we could take short setups to take liquidity underneath all of these lows. Going over to NZD yen, on the weekly time frame, we are order flow bullish, with now this demand being in control right over here. So this demand could then push price back up higher in towards the supply and this liquidity. So the order flow is bullish, but we're structure bearish, and we tap premium prices, so we could also trade down lower. Gotta see on the daily time frame to see what's up. So I can see a refined supply over here with some more liquidity underneath, so that's definitely a point of interest where I want to trade towards, although I'm seeing that we're inside this strong level where we reacted from, right? And we could now also see a reaction, but it could also be that we first see a swipe, grab liquidity, tap this supply zone, and then from here trade down lower. Also, that yearly level could already push price down lower, but once I'm waiting for the supply, we could already take shorts. When I go over to the 4-hour, again, I can see that we're consolidating, but even though that we are consolidating, let's see, this first of all is going to be not a swing break because it's internal, but what is going to be my order flow? Yeah, this is my order flow over here. This is my demand in control, which could push back up higher in towards that supply. So at the moment, I'm also still looking at longs here on NZD yen, because the 4-hour is bullish. Did we make a retracement in towards the 50%? I think we did not. Yeah, we did not, because you can see we trade up higher, then we did not make the connection because this is internal. this is going to be my swing high, and yeah, as of now we could see that retracement, take liquidity, tap discount, then we could take longs. That's definitely what I'm looking for, although the order flow will switch bearish then, and then we should trade down lower. As of now, the only thing that I'm waiting for is this supply from here, the confirmation to then trade down lower. So that's also just what I'm going to be patient about and going to wait for next week. Going over to Swiss yen, you can just see we have been skyrocketing up, and I think we can just continue to trade up higher. There are no signs that we are going to slow down and that we can just continue with the bullish order flow. And as you can see, this demand is in control over here, and this could push price back up higher. On the 4-hour time frame, again, yeah, we can take a look at the structure, the discount prices, the liquidity that's open, but it's just so bullish that these are the perfect continuation trades. If you want to trade continuation, we are inside this demand, and then you can just look at the lower time frame for confirmation to just continue up higher. That's also what I'm expecting for next week. Once we start breaking the order flow multiple times, I would say, then you could short, not just once, because the market knows that once we see one change, everyone is going to short because they want to get the top and then they want to short, but we then could possibly trade up higher than down lower, for example. So keep that in mind. Don't be too fast, be patient, and just continue to trade up higher. And I wouldn't recommend taking any shorts unless we see multiple breaks in towards the downside. Going over to CAD yen on a weekly time frame, the weekly order flow is still bullish. Keep in mind though that the monthly demand is still open, so we could see in the near future a retracement, but as of now the weekly order flow is bullish with the weekly trend. We took liquidity, so continuing up higher definitely looks possible. On the daily time frame, the daily is bearish, but we took liquidity, failed to break the low, and as we then know, we could take liquidity above the highs. Now we can also see that we kind of had this trend, this one, which we're now breaking in towards the upside, and we could continue to trade up higher to take out all of the liquidity above the highs. So also something to keep in mind. And then if we take a look at the order flow, we know that this demand is in control, and this one could push price up higher. This is not the 4-hour, this is the daily, so this could push price up higher. And that's also what I'm waiting for, because I can see that we have some liquidity above all of these highs. Why am I pointing out this liquidity high and not this one? Because it's on that yearly level, and from there, after that liquidity and that yearly, we could see a reaction. On the 4-hour time frame, let's have a look from the swing low in towards the swing high, the PVD. We then tapped the discount prices. Did we take liquidity underneath? We did not, but we failed to break that low, and then the order flow just switched bullish again, this being your demand zone with the monthly level being there as well. So that's definitely something where I want to take those long setups in towards this swing high. So that's going to be my game plan here on CAD yen, and from this amount I then want to look for some confirmation on the lower time frame to take long setups in towards that swing high, and of course that yearly level with that liquidity displayed over here perfectly on the daily time frame. Going over to my last pair on the weekly, we can see that this demand has been pushing price back up higher as of now. When I go over to the daily time frame, we are daily bullish with tap discount prices, and we have just respected the structure and we are trading up higher. So if you just look at structure, we should also keep an eye that we could break this high, but as of now we took liquidity and we could see a small retracement trading down lower, possibly in towards this demand zone to then trade up higher again. I'm going over to the 4-hour. We're bullish, but we grab liquidity. Like I said, we have the supply, so we could see a little retracement down lower and then trade up higher towards the swing high. Is this short valid? It is not, because it's counter the higher time frame and the 4-hour, so it's just not the best thing to do. The best thing to do is to wait for those long setups towards this high. Once we swipe the high, you could take shorts. As of now, as you can see, EURGBP is not my favorite because it has been very impulsive, and I don't really see a clear direction where this pair want to go to. So that's going to be my weekly outlook. I hope you liked it and learned a lot. And now let's get some trades together next week. See you guys in the next one. Ciao.